Yes.
There we go. Okay, recording.
We are recording. So welcome everybody who's come in tonight. We're really thankful that you came out to meet with us so we could talk about what we're doing here now in phase 3. It's a big major step for us as a church body. So we're going to give an overview of what's going on with that, talk about the trajectory of how we're heading through this time, and some of the measures that we put into place to help you guys be safer as we're coming back into the building. And then kind of give you an idea of what the timeline's looking like right now as far as we understand it for coming back in for Sunday morning services. But before we get started, I do just want to just open up in prayer and just invite the Holy Spirit to be with us tonight. So Lord, we just thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for how you have walked us through this time. And Lord, we ask right now that you would just bless this time that we have gathering this evening. We ask, Lord, that you would help us to be in one accord, Lord, and how we're moving forward here. Lord, I ask that you would help us to speak about the things that everybody here needs to know about, Lord, and also those that will be watching afterwards, Lord, that they would be able to see what's going on and have their questions answered. We just thank you, Lord, for this time and this opportunity. We bless it in Jesus' name. Amen. Mm-hmm. Tim, if you could just make sure that everybody's microphones stay muted as we're going forward, that'll help us with reverberation and everything else. So it's been a long time coming. We started months and months and months ago laying out our 4-phase plan of trying to come back from where we were in fully virtual mode towards a new steady state operations at our Father's house. And we're still going to be a ways out from steady state operations. Don't really have a good feel any better than anybody else does, and when things are going to go back to whatever a newer type of normalcy will be for us. But I think we've been, trying to press forward into what that's going to be for us here at our Father's house. And so we've been really thankful for the time we've been able to have in kind of the tail end of summer and into fall with our outdoor gatherings for Sundays and other events that we've been able to do outside. Those have been really helpful for us. And just so you guys know, if you're probably watching what the CDC guidelines were and what Maryland state guidelines were as far as churches coming back in together and gathering, and we kept a pretty good eye on that. And as a leadership team, looking at it, and as a pastoral team as well, looking at it, we've stayed well within what we've been allowed to do from a governmental standpoint. So I just want to say up front that we haven't been, going by exactly what the government standards are for us, and we can only do so much because they're only allowing us to do so much. We've really taken a different tactic with it, and it's really been, we want to do what's going to be best for us as a congregation, for who actually is here, for the space that we have available to us at our Father's house, both inside the building and outside the building. Because we really want to make sure that we're protecting our vulnerable members and those that we are in contact with. Many of you remember the survey that came out many months ago as we were trying to figure out, hey, what types of ways are we going to be coming back into contact with one another and being with one another, and what are you all comfortable with? And what we got back was very interesting. I mean, I'd say it was polarized on many different lines. And we had, if you really dig down into the data, you have folks that were vulnerable, but really wanting to come back. You had people that were not in a vulnerable position, but were very anxious about coming back into in-person services inside the building. And so we really just took that to heart, and didn't drive our decisions, but it really informed our decisions as far as how we were going to respond. So we really wanted to make decisions that are going to be healthy for you guys. I've said this a couple of times. We've done church so many different ways at this point. I have kind of lost count. Some of that's going to be seamless to what you all have experienced, but what we've had to do in the background to have live streaming things changing as more bandwidth is being eaten up and utilized by other people, pre-recording, live flowing stuff, trying to make contact throughout services, watching people migrating from Facebook to YouTube. It's been really interesting. So from a leadership perspective, we really tried to shift with it. And I think we've done an okay job, but I think there's definitely some lessons that we'll have learned coming out of this as we move forward into the future. of what we did well and what things we didn't do quite as well. It's been a challenge, and we've talked with a lot of other leaders in our area, trying to figure out what they're doing, what we're doing, and everybody's in a little bit of a different pace with it. So I was really glad when we were able to come back and start doing things outside. That was spectacular. The weather has been mostly very favorable for us. Going into the future, I think whether COVID is a situation we face next year or not, I think we're planning to do some outdoor types of events because it's been so pleasant out there. And I think we really learned and began to appreciate some of what we actually have on the campus there that we'd like to be able to do in the future. So we're thinking about that as far as what next year is going to end up being. But if you've read the document that we put out about phase 3, you'll see that with the social distancing standards that we have, with having to have 6 feet of distance between people, we're really limited as we look at the geometry of our space there to about at maximum, really maximum, and it depends on who shows up and what groupings of people we have. Maximum, we have about 80 people that we can put together in a room at a time. So that really starts to limit us. And so we could have come back into the building earlier, but the weather was so nice, we said, let's just not press in with that, because we were having 90 or so people on average every Sunday that we were meeting outdoors. And as you know, we could have fit a whole lot more into that space. So we really said, let's not hamper this. Let's stay outside as long as we can, and we'll start making plans towards moving into the building. So if you looked at what we're going to be doing, we are still going to be doing social distancing. We're still doing a no-touch environment. We have, as people are going to be coming into the building in our Sunday services, a questionnaire that you'll fill out. You can do it online ahead of time. You can do it at the door. If you don't have a smartphone or whatnot, we have paper copies that you can sign with all the same questions. But they're very standard questions that are being asked right now, like if you're going to go to the doctor's office, about your contact with anybody who's had COVID, if you've been experiencing different symptoms, if you're waiting for a test. Very simple, basic questions. And we're capturing that because we want to be able to, if there's any sort of exposure, let you know that there is a possibility that you're exposed in the future. But we want to be able to capture that, and we're also going to be doing temperature scans for folks because we really want to make that a safe environment for everybody who's coming in to worship together. We will be having masks during the entire time you're in the building, other than the speakers and the worship leaders and those that are singing on stage. Everybody else will be masked. We are saying, hey, come inside and worship. So wear a mask and feel free to be able to worship, sing while we're doing that. So I know some people might be uncomfortable with that, but that's the steps that we're taking moving forward into that environment. I will say, and I know Tim and Jimmy Winters on here with me, so if we need to get into some details about the system that we put in place, they could answer that later on. But about a month ago, I know Tim came to me and said, hey, Jay, we should really look at our ventilation system for the sanctuary to see if we can upgrade that. And we're very thankful. And Jimmy was able to put in a great system for us to bring in, extra outdoor air into the building. So we have, I think it's at least double what the standards are for us to be able. Oh, sorry, there. Tim's got his hands up. It's 10 times. I thought it was either double or 10. So Tim, I went with the low numbers. So thank you for correcting me. We are bringing in 10 times the cubic, tonnage or footage of air per minute that is really recommended for us to be able to do. So we're really doing a lot of overkill to try to bring in fresh air into the room. We've got the fan circulating and all that. So we're trying to take precautions to make that a very safe space. Our downstairs is off limit right now with everything we have with our daycare. We got a whole new world down there right now for them to be able to keep up the standards they have to keep the daycare running. They've been doing a great job with that. So we're nowhere near being ready to have children's services downstairs. We are considering what we could do for youth or other types of services, but we don't have plans to do that yet. You'll see in the document that we've made We've made provisions for that in this stage because we honestly don't know how long we're going to be here in this phase 3. And phase 3 might shift. We might shift what we're doing within phase 3 as we go, as things progress through this time. We don't know what fall and winter are truly going to bring for us as a community here in Southern Maryland, but we as a church are going to be responsive to that. So we're starting with our recovery ministries coming back into the building, small scale stuff, so we can test out some of the procedures that we have, the question forms, the QR codes, the temperature scans, getting people up to speed with how to do that, how long it takes to be able to do that, and find things that aren't working out very well. I was really glad that we didn't just jump right into saying, all right, let's do Sunday services first and we'll figure it all out from there. Because when we had our Sunday service this time with just our leadership team there this Sunday, we had issues with the QR codes. We had issues with questionnaires. We realized, this works if you're having one person fill this out, but not for a family. So we got to think through this a little bit. There's, where's the box of this and that? So it was a really good time for us as a leadership team to go through it and feel what that felt like on a very small scale so that we can build up and make sure that we're doing our procedures very well. So we've reached out to Thelma with divorce care, TPM as well, and also CR. CR has been really limping along from an OFH perspective through this time. I don't mean that from an effort standpoint, but it's been very challenging for them to have CR meetings through this time. So we really want to make sure that there's opportunity for them to be able to come into the building. And that will be one of our first opportunities to try this out on a semi-large scale with gathering people in there. So we've been talking with Pat and Marie about doing that. So they're prepping their leadership team to be able to move into the building. So we're doing these things it almost feels like backwards as far as coming back into the building. We're taking those steps to build up our processes, build up our procedures, make sure they're good so that we can be confident that when we come to our first Sunday morning services, we've tested a lot of things out before we're trying to bring at most 80 people into the room. I don't know if we're going to bring 80 people into the room the first time that we come back. What we've seen from a lot of other churches is that they had outdoor services, they had a great number of people coming, and then they moved into the building and watched the percentages diminish pretty quickly there. It's taking people a while to get comfortable coming back, and we're okay with that. We understand what's going on there. Now, we've tried to time this with what's going on in the weather as far as us being able to be outside. Right now, I don't know how too cold is. I think most people are going to make that decision for themselves. We've been there in the 50s, and it's been comfortable. It's been tolerable for some folks. If it's windy and drippy, that's one thing. If it's sunny and warm, that's been a different thing. So we're really going to try to stay outdoors as long as we can. But as soon as it gets uncomfortable, we're going to say, okay, we'll call that quits. Hopefully by that point in time, we are able to actually bring people indoors for an indoor service. If not, we will do something akin to what we did this last week until we are confident that we have things in place and we can make that safe for you guys. So really, like I said, our intent here is really protection of the flock from a pastoral standpoint. We want to keep you guys healthy. For whenever you're gathering inside OFH or doing something for OFH purposes, ultimately the responsibility for what takes place from an outcome perspective is on mine and Pastor Lanny's shoulders at the moment. And so we take that very seriously. What you guys do on your own time as far as gathering with people and social gatherings is what you do. But as we're coming together, we're setting standards for us as a body to say, hey, this is what we're doing to protect one another and anybody who's going to come in our doors from the community. And so I think it's been working well so far. I know all of us have different levels of sensitivity and abilities to accept risk throughout all of this. So it's a challenging time for us to navigate. So we're really trying to plot a good steady course through all of this. So we're excited about it. I'm really proud of our leadership team for asking some very challenging questions as we've been going through the planning and the processes with this. We've not rushed into it. And I know you probably feel that. I know for some folks, this is too early. For others, this is overdue. But for us as a leadership team, it's really been, we don't want to push this too far, too fast. We're looking at our unique scenario with our building, our limitations, our people, and really trying to do the best that we can for you. Meeting together and gathering together in person, in my mind, is so much better than being able to do things virtually. And I really feel for those that are unable to come and gather with us in person right now and do anything more than virtual. That's, I know you guys are making the best choices for yourself and for your family, for those that you work with. I totally get it. But my heart as a pastor is to try to get us to gather together in person as safely as possible in this time. Even masked and not able to hug people, I'd rather do that than be separated by screens and all of that. So that's truly where our heart is on all of this. I did have just one question came in today ahead of us gathering, and it was basically, how does one become a member? So it's not as geared towards what we're doing here tonight, but I did want to say, you know, as many of you know, we don't have an official membership at our Father's house. You'll hear Tim say, hey, it's that time of year for us to do our directory again. If this is a place that you call home, please let us know so that we can be connecting with you. And that's been really important for how we gather together and how we see one another as far as who OFH is. But for those that have been newcomers to us prior to COVID, we would have periodically, as we would gather up a few groups of newcomers, we would have a newcomers class. Meeting with pastors, meeting with various leaders in the church, and helping people know who we are here at our Father's house and what we're about. Since COVID has happened, we have not been doing that, and I think it's we have at least one or two couples that have come and landed with us. So we're coming to that place to be able to have a class, whether that's going to be virtual or it could be something that is in person in the building in a socially distanced manner. Utilizing all the resources that we have now. So that's something that we would like to do. And that gives people an opportunity to kind of try us on a little bit, hear my heart as a pastor, hear other leaders, and really get to know who we are at our Father's house. Oftentimes people have been experiencing being part of our Father's house as a community by the time they come into that class. But it is really a good time. A lot of great networking happens there. New connections are made for people, and it's a wonderful time. So I think we're at a place to be able to do that again. But that was the one question that I had come in ahead of time. I assume there are other questions in the room. So I would like to open it for questions. And if so, I would like, maybe you can raise a hand and Tim can unmute you. And then we can answer those questions as they come forward. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. There's a hand raising thing in the comment usually for people to be able to use. Any questions? Nancy Knight, go ahead.
Yeah, 1 second, Nancy. Are we hearing you, Nancy? My unmute all button is not working.
How's that?
There, now I can get you.
Okay, you said something about 80 people max at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Explain what you mean by that.
Sure. So when we do when we look at the geometry of the room and we look at how much space a person takes up or a grouping of people takes up, to be able to have our circles of 6 foot of distance between everybody, we get a maximum of 80 people in the room. We've also found, depending on the grouping size, and Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, we can usually also be somewhere around 60 people. So somewhere between 60 and 80 people in the room is what we see available to us. One of the things that we are going to be doing for our in-person Sunday morning services is pre-registration, so that we can make sure that we're not having 120 people show up outside the door and we can only accept 80. That will give us an idea of group sizes that we have coming in. So Nancy, say it's you and your husband, or maybe you bring in some grandkids with you or whatnot, you would be able to let us know, and we would be able to respond to that. We're We have the chairs set up in rows right now with 6 foot distance spaces between them. But I think as we go along, we're probably going to learn some things and adjust that as we find is going to work best for us as a community.
Well, what about multiple services if there's more than 80, 60
Yeah.
to 80?
So we're looking at how that would lay out. Most of us have been around long enough to remember running multiple services or have been involved in running multiple services. Yeah, it's a real challenge on manpower. Now, if that's something that we need to do, then we can shift to that. There's also other possibilities as far as like an A day and a B day or something like that. We're not planning at the moment to shift towards multiple services. We recognize that could happen. I think we're going to watch to see what the demand is as far as people's responses and showing up. If we regularly find ourselves with more people wanting to come than we're able to provide in a single service, then we're going to have to adjust to that. But at this point, our focus is on, can we get a service together and get people in the door?
Yeah, because you could do a Saturday evening service, Sunday evening, or 2 morning services. I think the 2 morning services would probably be harder to manage. But there's always, the Catholic way. You go to church Saturday night and it works for Sunday, right? Or, Sunday evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing to recognize, we're not going to stop recording the services.
Right, I know.
They're going to be live streamed. Plus, as Jay indicated earlier, we have done research locally with other churches which have reopened.
Mm-hmm.
And I belong to a church administrators group, and we meet every month discussing what we're doing with our own churches. And everybody has said when they have moved indoors, their participation rates go down substantially. They may be 30 or 40% outdoor services, but when they start off indoors, it's 10 or 20%. So 20% of our average, which we were running about 160, 170 people before COVID. And so if we're only 20%, then that'll be about 30 some people. And one other thing to recognize, there will not be children's ministry. Jay didn't mention that, but we will not be having children's ministry. So it will be a bit challenging for those of you with children to come, and they'll have to sit through the worship and a 45-minute sermon. They'll have to sit through Daniel. Sometimes Daniel takes half an hour. I don't know why. But they won't mind that part. But the result is very few large families come to in-house services where there's nothing special for children. And so that also reduces the number of people who will end up coming to a service. So if we're at 80, that is 50% of a normal service. We hit that 3 Sundays in a row outside on beautiful days, out under the trees. I mean, we just had an optimal outdoor experience. And we still didn't get more than 90 people out of 170 or so that would normally, in summer, our numbers go down in the summer. So I'm not really concerned about making plans for, oh my goodness, we're going to have 160 people want to come back to church. There's a lot of folks out there that they're still going to be very cautious, and they weren't even coming to the outdoor services. I did one assessment and we only had, I think I said 60% of our people I had identified 60% of our people came to one of the 8 different outdoor venues that we have. So even though we had almost 2 months of outdoor venues, we didn't come close to having everybody come. A whole lot of us just came every week, and a lot of us didn't come at all. So,
yeah.
So what are some of the other churches that you've been talking to doing with kids? Are they some of the other churches having a way to do kids ministry?
The churches that were having children come and the weather was still nice, they were doing some things outdoors. One church said they took the smaller children out of the service and they took them into the lobby so that there was an activity with the children that I'm talking about probably kids under 5 years old. And I thought, well, that's a possibility. We might be able to do that. in a pinch. But other churches, as they transitioned from meeting indoors over a period of time, then they were able to open up other parts of their building and do children's ministry. Churches that have been meeting indoors since June, they've made a transition into ministry where we're not even close. Plus, they have a facility that doesn't have a daycare. If we didn't have a daycare, we might be doing all sorts of, have far more flexibility that we don't currently have.
Mhm. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
Penny?
Hey, I was wondering, and this just popped into my head tonight, would there be the possibility of any consideration for single folks like myself, if we have a family unit in the church that we routinely are with, could we be connected to that family unit so that when we come in, we could sit with that family unit?
Yeah, if you guys are already gathering together, you know, and you're seeing each other's family, then I'm fine with that. We're not going to be, you know, over regulatory about that. Oh no, Penny, your last name is different than their last name. No, we recognize that. But what we don't want to have is lots of intermingling between lots of groups. That's where we start to see challenges. And so, but yeah, if you're coming in with another group and you're saying, these are my family, go for it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Caitlin?
Oh, hang on, Caitlin. Let me unmute you.
Marty, I see you next.
Marty, you can speak. You're unmuted.
Should I speak or should Marty speak?
We'll get you first, Caitlin.
Go ahead, Caitlin.
Okay. This just occurred to me right now too. And thank you for your explanations to Penny and Nancy, because you may have answered my question. But I have actually in this whole been meeting with my Walmart job, been meeting a lot of people, and I've handed out my Celebrate Recovery cards a lot, which I also use as church cards. And I have one, maybe two people who are interested in coming to visit our church. What do I need to say to them? Do I need to tell them to pre-register? Do I, you know, how do I explain to them upcoming services?
Sure. So when we
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a really great question. Thank you. When we do open up to indoor services for others, it will be open to everybody in our Father's house and the community. So we'll be directing people on our website to be able to pre-register for the service. Now, if we're in a situation where, say, somebody came on a Sunday morning, they were totally unaware of that or whatnot, we would have to see if we've already filled up in our registry or not. If not, somebody can right there, they can scan a QR code on their phone and they can fill out the questionnaire right there. They can do the temperature scan and they can come in and be involved. So we've really tried, that's if there's space available. If there isn't space available, then we'll encourage them to visit us virtually and to pre-register the next week. And so that's where we're at right now with it, but we want to make it available for people who show up unawares to be able to participate if we have space for them.
So just to be clear, what I'm hearing is that try to pre-register, but if that's too much of an obstacle and it's just someone who's looking to show up on Sunday, yes, show up. Based on Tim's discussions, it's most likely that we won't be full. So yes, show up, be ready for a health check, be ready to obey COVID rules, distancing, etc. They can probably sit with me because they know me or I met them. It sounds, I don't know if someone's trying to talk or, oh, okay. I guess that was just some interference. So feel free to show up, but if they have kids of their own, make clear that there will be no children's ministry and the children will have to obey social distancing as well.
Yeah, and we're asking parents to keep their kids with them in the service, you know, much like we've done already outdoors. And I'll say the kids that have come to our outdoor services have done really well with that time. So it'll be similar, just be in the church building.
Okay.
Great question. Thank you. Marty.
Okay, here I am. I think I've got it. There's about three things I'm thinking of here. One is I hear the direction. Tell me if I'm wrong. I hear us more in the direction of trying to manage diminished numbers as opposed to working towards an end that we would be able to accommodate more numbers within the guidelines and so forth. But it sounds like we're working on managing lower numbers. Now, Tim is correct that from what I've seen, other churches that we're, numerous friends that pastor churches are suffering the same thing. The numbers are diminishing when they go back in service live. So as opposed to thinking of managing diminished numbers, it seems like we should be thinking of a way to manage increasing numbers as possible. That brings about my second thought, which is I go and look at the community and businesses that rely on managing larger numbers. And one of the things I've noticed they do is they can't have indoor numbers like a church can. They can only have so many people. But they get around that issue by putting up a portable all-weather tent. You can rent those and even use propane heaters that would heat them. But one of those placed on the lawn just outside the, what is that, the south or west end of the church of the lobby, with propane heaters would allow you to have services even in the wintertime for the kids. I'm saying that in line with the fact that if people bring their kids into services, you're going to have a limited number of adults and maybe, and a limited number of kids. Whereas if you had an outdoor facility like the restaurants and the bars use, then you could have a facility that the adults could worship indoors, and there would be a heated facility that would work outdoors for the children. And the third item is that I heard on didn't hear it on the internet, so it can't be true, but I heard that on one of the news reports, they said that we are looking at masking through 2022. If that's the case, we'd be looking at outdoor services again, possibly in 2021 and maybe in 2022. So I would, just as an idea to throw out, and this goes back to the money deal, which I'm no expert at, let's face it, would be to revisit the idea of the outdoor pavilion that we explored a couple of years ago when we went over to Solomon's and looked at the Calvert Marine Museum. Nothing near that size, but an outdoor stage or pavilion like we were talking about that's electrified and has a dried-in stage that we were going to have built would have two purposes. One, that would allow us to have outdoor services 2021 and maybe into 2022. But beyond that, it would give us an outdoor venue to do what we had planned originally, which was to have concerts and the like and stuff like that in a sheltered, dry place where you could have electricity and so forth. And you have more than enough room after we get away, hopefully, from the COVID situation. You could have 1,000 people out there on that lawn for a concert or something like that. The ancillary part of that would be this winter, construction may be tight, and people might be looking for work and give really good bids on doing something like that. Yeah. So that's just my three deals there. That, but the main thing would be to look at. I would really stress look at the way of putting in, like I said, a tent or some kind of sheltered covering that you can heat just outside the door that could accommodate, say, 75 or 100 people. It would work for the kids on Sunday. You could have Celebrate Recovery and a number of other things in that facility also. And then we get away from COVID, you cancel the lease, they fold it up and take it away. That's the way restaurants and bars are handling it. And if, the church can learn from the best bar in town.
We've been doing it for centuries.
That's right. Right. So go ahead. That's just something I was going to throw out there for whatever it's worth. And I've actually got another meeting I got to go to, but I wanted to throw that to you.
Well, hey, I just want to say thank you. Those are great recommendations. We've talked about several of these options for how we can gather people outside, mixed indoor, outdoor, all that. So those are really good points. I don't think we've landed on specifically some of the things you were saying there, but definitely encouraging us along the lines that we had been considering. Those of you that had been doing outdoor service with us, Marty, I know you've been joining us out there with that as well. We've shifted locations of where we've had people setting up, where we've had stages, where we've moved things around because we're trying to feel out that space. And like I said earlier tonight, we're looking at using that outdoor space in the future, whether it's COVID or not, because it really is such a wonderful venue space for us to be able to do something. So, so I appreciate your comments there. We had, some of you may or may not know that we did look at putting in an outdoor amphitheater type of situation for us to be able to host concerts and things like that in the past. We invested a little bit differently when we expanded our playground out there, but it's certainly something that's been on our minds for some time now from a leadership standpoint. So we revisited some of those discussions lightly during this time, but I think we're recognizing that there's opportunity available for us. There's a lot of potential with our landscape. So points of consideration. So Marty, thank you very much.
All right.
Wanda. And then Winters will come to you next.
You're very quiet.
Very quiet.
We can't hear you. I know you're unmuted on my end.
Type it.
Yeah, Wanda, could you type it for us and we'll come back to it?
She may not have her audio connected.
I have something from you. She says, is this the comment that you typed earlier here? It says, have we considered meeting later in the day when it could be warmer? We have talked about outdoor services if we continue to hold them, if we can shift the time for warmer times during the day. So that is something that's part of the consideration for how we could move forward with that. We could even also shift our location. Right now we're down in the field. We made that decision because when we first moved outside, we wanted it to be shady because it was in August, and so it was pretty hot. So we wanted to have the cover of the trees. With it being cooler, having sun,
and falling tree limbs.
Yeah, and falling tree limbs. We had that too a couple of times.
Wanda.
So we want, there is a possibility that moving into the sun up closer to the building could be more of an opportunity in cooler months. So yeah, Wanda, good point. Also part of consideration. So just once again, we have done this church gathering services in so many different ways. What you guys saw this Sunday morning might have looked similar to what we did 2 weeks ago when I preached inside, but the setup was completely different. So we've had to just kind of keep running and rethinking everything because it keeps shifting. So we're trying to make good, solid decisions along the way so that we're having to make fewer micro decisions. So thank you very much.
Good option.
Yeah, but a great option. Winters.
Where is Winters? Oh. Okay, you should be good, Amber.
As far as when people come to the church and they get their temperature check and check them off the registry, is that going to be the greeter's job?
Yeah, that's going to be something that's going to be greeters and ushers to help with that. Yep.
That was my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that question. So there's, what we had in person previous, to COVID and what we have afterwards. I mean, we have a couple of different types of roles that are now emerging for us, and you need to have people serving in our ushers and greeting. There's fewer ministries that we've been able to do in person over this time, so we are looking for folks to volunteer to help out in the ushering and the greeting. There's a real need for that type of thing. So if you found yourself unable to do things that you might have been able to do in the past, and it's still hard for us to do those ministry activities still, and you're still looking to serve, there's ways to serve. So great question. Thank you.
So those are,
I think there's a real, probably an art to making those types of things comfortable when they could possibly be kind of uncomfortable and awkward, but to be a real welcoming phase amongst some of these things that we're having to do, I think is important.
Yeah. Nancy.
I have been doing some experimenting with those thermometer guns. They are extremely inaccurate. At least the ones we have. We have already experimented with 2 of them. One was a little less expensive. One was about a $50 model. I mean, they come $250, but I have found them to be extremely variable.
Mhm.
So,
I was so cold at one appointment, I probably should have been in the hospital. It didn't look good.
She's so hypothermic.
Well, I will say, we've been using those thermometers for River Song children since the end of June, so many months. The ones that we got were not the real cheap ones. I think they were running like $80 a piece. And so they have been working satisfactorily for River Song.
yeah, you just got to make sure you get the ones that actually work. You know, maybe I've been trying to find one that will work with animals, because I hear that they're, you know, some of them can work that way, which would be quick for some certain animals that we can't get close to. But I have not found one for people or animals that are at this point very accurate. Because we've been trying, you know, the regular thermometer and comparing it, and they're awful. But so just so long as we have a good model, you know.
Yeah, we put in our orders for thermometers literally what 5 or 6 months ago. I think Pastor Lanny jumped on that like right away, not knowing when we'd be coming back and what we'd be coming back to. And so we were pretty upfront early on all those things.
No, it's on right now.
But yeah, like Tim said, we've been using those day in and day out now for months with our River Song families, and so we're confident in the reliability, recognizing there's variance in that. I think most of us have gotten a 97 point something at a doctor's office recently. But if you look at the document, we're saying, you know, anything over 100, we're going to turn you around at the door. I think that's reasonable with what we have from an equipment standpoint available to us. So again, it's for your protection. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have COVID, but there's other stuff that could be giving you 100, you know, plus temperature that we don't want you coming and bringing into our Father's house. You know, we want to keep our people healthy. So it's a good screening for us all around. Have another question? Always.
Hi.
Hey.
Just want to, oh, there goes the cat. I just want to say thank you to all you technical people that have been working so hard, because I don't get it. And I know it's got to be a lot of work, and I just sit back and watch. But two things. One thing, it just came up. You said 100 degrees. I might make a recommendation to lower that a little, because I had COVID and I had 2 times where I was a little over 100. The rest of the whole time when I thought I was dying was 99.8. So the whole time it barely hit over 100. I'm thinking that's too late. If you're over 100, that could be really bad. The other thing, I'm just going to say, this is probably rhetorical to a pastor, but we should be calling people we don't even know that well, that we haven't seen at the outdoor services. Say, hey, we're about to open. You know, have you been isolated due to low technology, or just running from God, or whatever? Because there's a lot of people. I'm not the keep everybody together guy, but I notice there's quite a few people who have never seen at any of these outdoor services. And you know, some of them, there's reasons of, you know, they don't want to be near anybody for health reasons. But I don't know that that's the only thing. If you look at, I mean, it's just a concern to me that all these churches have the same thing. You go inside and your numbers drop, and I'm just wondering, you know, how many people are just cutting loose. So I'll call people that I don't know very well, but I've noticed they're missing.
Good man.
We appreciate that. You know, we have over 200 people that are part of our Father's house on a regular basis prior to COVID. Now, not everybody shows up on any given Sunday. We all know that. We, like Tim said, we're usually running around 160 to 170 folks, but there's around 220 people that call our Father's house home. And that's a lot of people to reach out to.
Yeah.
And if it's just left on the pastors and the church staff to do that, that's a ton of phone calls for a few people to do.
Yeah.
But we are the body of Christ.
Mhm.
And so it's really for all of us. And you've heard Lanny say it, you've heard me say it, as people dance across your heart and you're thinking about folks, recognize oftentimes that's the Holy Spirit putting them on you for a reason. And I'll be frank, I've missed that a couple of times recently, and it's caused some challenges for folks. And so I'm learning this as a pastor, as a man. And so I encourage all of us as you have those types of connections, as you have those tugs, and you start wondering about people, take the extra step to give them a call, send them a text, do what it is, because it's meaningful to have us reach out to one another. We're a family, and I think in this time it's become very easy for us to meander into isolation in our relationships with one another, not intentionally, but we're all having to isolate to some degree, and I think it's become easy for us to drift off. And part of what we get out of an in-person Sunday experience is that we have an environment where we're going to come into contact with other people in one form or fashion, and we have opportunity to speak to people, to give them a hug, to, hey, how you doing? Hey, maybe we should meet for coffee, that kind of stuff. And we become very dependent upon that structure to give us those opportunities. When that structure's stripped away, we have to find new ways to do that. So Chris, I appreciate you saying that, and I just encourage all of us, be reaching out to each other. It's very meaningful, and for a lot of us, anything is like water on dry ground right now.
Right.
It can change somebody's day, week, month to have that.
Yeah.
So we're trying to reach as best we can, but we know that from a leadership standpoint, we can only go so deep. So
Perryman's had some
yeah,
questions.
Perryman's,
And then
Wallace's will come to you guys next.
So it's more of a statement than a question. I wanted to touch on what Caitlin mentioned when it comes to people that may need
Uh,
to.
So this,
You need your temperature
Perryman,
check.
I'm gonna ask you guys to type the question or the statement.
sounds like you're falling asleep.
Yeah, it's about 3 times longer than normal, and
My thought with that is, I don't know what our interface looks like as far as
That's weird.
we'll get to this question again soon. Wallace's, can we move to you guys?
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna go to Wallace's now.
A couple of questions, please. One is, will the definition of wearing a mask be made abundantly clear? And how will the no touch, social distance, mask wearing be enforced?
A good question, and that's a hard one. First of all, a mask is over your nose and over your mouth, and it's gonna be at all times. So if it's gonna be helpful to have extra signage for that, we can do that, certainly. And I think if someone is unwilling to wear masks, it already states in our guidelines there, that's not going to be. We can't do that. We're not going to allow somebody in if they're refusing to wear a mask. If there's touching, there's hugging, there's handshakes, things like that are going on, we're going to have to address it from an ushering standpoint. If it's not reconciled at that point, then ultimately that's going to come to me as pastor to address. Truly, we're doing this for the health benefits of everybody who's coming into our Father's house, and that might seem very strict and or draconian to folks, but as a shepherd, I am concerned with your health and your well-being. And if we're saying that we're creating a safe space to do that, then we're asking everybody who's joining in that to participate in that. We all want to be able to hug one another. We all want to be able to shake hands and do the types of things that we've done as part of our Father's house for a long time. We are a hugging church. We're a very loving church. But part of what that experience looks like right now is that we're giving up some of what we would naturally be wanting to do so that we can care for one another. So I really hope that we don't have any issues with that with anybody, because I don't want to have to, bring correction to that. But it's my responsibility that we abide by those things so that we can really enjoy one another and enjoy the Lord's presence together. So, good question.
Is this any better?
Yeah, it is much better. Thank you.
Okay, good. So I don't know, I want to touch on what Caitlin was talking about. I don't know what our check-in or pre-sign up interface looks like. And I know it wasn't something that you said you necessarily have a concern about in the beginning phases of reopening indoors. But if there could be a way for there to be a yes or no question in check-in somehow, it might give us an opportunity to have any number of really plugged in regulars willing to give up their so-called spot in service if a newcomer arrives. I know there's a lot of us that would absolutely give up our seat if there was somebody that was seeking respite or a church home and had not yet had that opportunity without having that feeling of rejection. So if there's a way to have that, that might be an option for newcomers.
That's a really good recommendation, Micah. So our communications director / person who's building a lot of that stuff is on the line right now. So we'll take that back. She's looking sheepish right there. No, Jessica's done a really good job of building this stuff up for us, and we're learning as we go. So if that doesn't come out as something that's there right away, that may be something that we spiral in as we move forward. So thanks for that recommendation. Yeah, Caitlin and then Penny.
Thank you.
You're muted again.
Testing.
You're good.
Okay. This may be a repetition. There was a little bit of trying to figure out who was playing whose audio here, Thelma or me, at the beginning. So we didn't catch every bit of the part where you were talking about the expectations and the social distancing at church, the specifics. I think you were going over some of the specifics. And then later on, as you were talking about us being a hugging church, and it sounded like you were referencing it in a positive way. And then I heard you explaining to Mary, no hugging, that will be reinforced. So my question as a greeter is, who will be reinforcing it and what are the boundaries? I've been working at Walmart cashiering basically since June, and between having to do cashiering and getting tasked to greeting, which is now health ambassador is the new title for our greeters. I've had a lot of, hey, pardon me, do you mind putting your mask on? Hey, pardon me, do you mind? I'm used to that kind of stuff. And so that's not an issue for me to look forward to maybe trying to enforce, but to what level are you looking at greeters and or ushers to enforce it? And do they enforce it in the parking lot as well as the building, or not in the parking lot, but inside the building, etc.? If I see Joe and Jane hugging in the parking lot, but sitting separately in the building, do I step in and say something? This may be a more detailed question than needs to be addressed at this time.
Yeah, I'm really not wanting us to be Nazis about this, guys. Really, we're asking people to not participate in that type of activity when they're on the premises at this point. I would really like to be able to open that up in the future as we go along.
Following Jessica's suggestion, will we be issued tasers? Oh, sorry. No, it was Jessica. I didn't mean to embarrass you, Jessica, but I'm all for the opportunity to be armed.
No, really.
I told her we would issue the greeters tasers for the parking lot.
Leave room for the Holy Spirit, y'all.
Let's get let's get the room back again here.
I apologize. You were
Okay.
saying you don't want us to be Nazis.
No, we don't want to go overboard with this. We're asking people to be conscientious and be respectful of one another and what we're doing in the environment that we're creating. If we see repetitive behavior, we're going to have to address it, right? But I would rather that we don't have to get there. And I'd also like for us to be able to open up more context. Maybe we're doing elbow bumps or something like that in the future here as we ease back towards that. But what really, like I said, we are a hugging church. We are a physical contact type of church that's been part of our nature for a long time. So this is very foreign to most of us. But so we're gonna have to be gracious with each other as we're moving through this because we're feeling it out. I've seen some hugs that have happened. I've seen people, doing what they're doing. I'd prefer for us not to do that right now, but I'm also not going to jump on people because it's happening. So if it's repetitive behavior, then I will have to address it. I think there's ways for us in our registration for the services to put disclaimer in there on what that environment is going to look like, so people can see that's what they're agreeing to and they're signing up for us to come into a service. And we can have signage at the church for that as well. I believe there's already some signage up in the building about some of this. So I anticipate we'll have to reinforce that as we come together. But I really believe that our Father's house, we care about each other. As uncomfortable as most of us are with having to be distanced, we're willing to do it for the benefit of one another. But it needs some reinforcement along the way. We are a grace-filled community. We've offered each other grace many, many, many times over the years. So we're going to continue in that posture. But those are the guidelines that we're putting into place. I hope that helps understand how we'll move through that. Penny.
And I apologize for the off-track thing.
That's okay.
That was my fault.
We're good. Thank you very much. Penny.
Just two quick things. First, I really liked Micah's suggestion. And just to kind of piggyback on that, then if there are folks that are willing to give up their seat, then maybe we should consider, is there an outside screen, or do we still have the radio station thing available so we can just go to our car and sit out there or something like that? The other thing was just in hearing the last conversation about not wanting to be Nazis. There still may be those of us who see somebody and go, oh, they're not wearing their mask. So maybe we need direction on how to, do we say something, or do we just say something to the ushers and let them handle it? So let the body know how we're supposed to respond so that we don't come off as being Nazis to everybody else.
Yeah. I think Penny, that was a great the first comment was really good as far as, a way for people to be able to still participate if they've shown up that day or whatnot. I think with the radio station broadcast, that's something that we can certainly continue to do. That's not a challenge for us. So that's a good recommendation. Listen, I don't want things to have to elevate to a place where we're having to, bring in, authoritarian type of, action to bring people into alignment with what our policies are. It's most often very easy and very simple for you to say, hey, don't forget your mask, or hey, we're not hugging, we're still in a no contact phase. It's easiest if we just self-manage each other, keep things at the lowest level. If there's a problem beyond that, then you can bring it to somebody who has a role to play that day. But I would encourage you to be gracious as you have been gracious with each other in the past, and just give somebody a simple reminder. Oftentimes it's just a simple reminder that people need. I mean, I almost walked into the doctor's office the other day, got all the way across the parking lot, and had to turn back around again, go to my car because I just forgot to bring my mask. And I've been wearing masks for months now, but I don't have a problem with masks, but somebody could have thought, oh, I'm trying to storm the gates of the doctor's office without a mask on. That's not the case. So, really, you give each other the benefit of the doubt and just give somebody a simple reminder about things.
I talked to my church group, discussed this point, and they were asking, well, how do you control it? And they said they set the tone at the pulpit, at the beginning of the service, in the middle of the service. They just remind people gently, lovingly, hey, here's our standards. Thank you so much for adhering to what we're trying to do here. We really appreciate it. And when the tone is set in black and white when they register, and then when they arrive at the door, then you just keep repeating it. And they said they just don't have any issues where the ushers are having to confront people and tell them to mask up or get the heck out. It hadn't been an issue. And just like Jay said, I mean, we've been meeting outside for a couple of months, and I've had Jay remind me a time or two, hey, Tim, put your mask on. I'm like, oh man, sorry, man. I didn't think about it. You know, I'm walking down from my car and I see somebody start talking, and Jay will say, hey, put your mask on. So it is something that we've been doing already for several months outdoors. So I really don't think it'll be as much of a problem as it could be.
Yeah, and likewise, I mean, the ushers too, they're not going to let anybody into the building without a mask on. I mean, that's
we got
part of
masks.
what they're going to be.
Will
That's
there
part
be
of what they're
masks
being
there?
direct on. Yeah, and there are masks available. If
We'll have
somebody forgot a mask, we will have disposable masks available. So we've provided for that as well. So really, we want to make that a as welcoming an environment as we can. We want us to all understand, you know, what those ground rules of that environment is going to be. And I don't think it's overly imposing, you know, as considering everything that we're already doing right now, just moving about in society here.
And I just watching the outdoor services, which have been so fun to be at. It's been really encouraging to me to just see us being us, even though, you know, there's certain things we can't do. We're still us amongst that. And as strange as it sounds, even just watching the kids, they're still being kids and still talking to one another. And even if they're wearing a mask, they're just doing it and they're not allowing it to get in the way of enjoying one another. So I think it's going to be important for us just to remember, like, just to be us in all this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had one other question. Yes, Tina.
So this is in line with Micah and Penny and Marty. I don't know that a tent is realistic up front, and I'm always gonna look at the glass half full and think that it won't be long till many people join us. But do we have an overflow plan, or is that a possibility that we could have an overflow so that we never have to turn away again?
I like that.
Well, yeah, the core has definitely discussed it at our meetings, and we definitely have the possibility of utilizing some of our lower level space as long as we have the procedures in place to disinfect the lower level. And we've got a janitor that comes in on Sunday afternoons. He's been doing it for years to get the facility ready between Sunday service and River Song. So we could use our lower level. We just have to utilize our special equipment. And we purchase, I have a disinfecting fogger machine that can disinfect large areas relatively quickly and easily. So before we needed to put a tent up outside, which would have all sorts of challenges, folks. Road noise is one. I don't know if you've been to the outdoor service, but sometimes road noise will drown out somebody 300 feet away. And if we're right beside the highway, it's challenging on Sunday mornings sometimes. So at any rate, we do have options. We just have to take them one day at a time.
Yeah.
From every pastor that I've talked to, nobody said, oh my goodness, one Sunday we had 90% capacity. Nobody was saying that. It's something which goes very slowly and gradually as people start getting comfortable and start participating again. Just like when we were outdoors, it didn't go from one Sunday where we had 70 people and everybody said, wow, this is great. And the next Sunday we had 150. It just didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, Tina, I appreciate where you're coming from there with not wanting to turn anybody away. I mean, you know, clearly our heart is to not have to turn people away. But we do have limitations on what we can do from space right now. So we're shooting at a moving target constantly. And once we think that we've got a good beat on something, it moves the opposite direction. So sometimes we zag when things zigged, and sometimes we got it right. Sometimes we didn't intend to get it right, and it happens. So it's been that kind of season for us. Those that are on our leadership team can attest to you that it's been a constant shift for us through this, and it's been a constant shift for you guys too. So we're not, we're going to try this out. We're going to, once we get to the place where we're able to open up for a Sunday service, we're going to see what happens. We're going to see how responses from you guys and others, and then we're going to watch what happens over the next couple of weeks, and that'll start to hopefully tell us trends that are happening. So there's a lot of cycle on this, as we're continually trying to meet the need and consider what resources we can put into it as well. I think I had another question. Karen. Yeah, and then Linnea.
Okay. Just thinking about some of the things that were said and how to tap into people that we haven't seen at the outside services or we haven't been in touch with.
Mhm.
I can say from a personal point of view, in the spring when COVID hit and the leadership team put into place the geographic connection groups, that was really huge for me because it gave me something to look forward to, a smaller group of people to connect with, even though it was once a week. That was really important.
Yeah.
So maybe as we're moving through the holidays and it's getting colder, maybe bringing that back. Because I know in the summertime, everybody went their own directions and they kind of, that season passed, but maybe the season's coming back that we revisit doing that again.
Karen, that's really great. Really great comment. In, I think it was our last leadership meeting, I said I would really like us to kind of re-engage our connection captains. We did see a lot of those groups dwindle and dry up, especially as we came into the warmer summer months. But no, that's a really good recommendation, and those are connections that we have now established, and I think it's worth us reinvigorating as we're coming into this time. So thank you for that recommendation. That's a really good one. Linnea. You got it.
I think I'm on. Okay. I agree with Karen. I think that would be a really good thing to start again. I've heard from other friends from other churches that when they move inside, they are not to sing. They can hum, but they cannot sing during worship. I'm wondering if you addressed that.
Yeah, we said it earlier, and so you may have missed it. But when we're coming together for our in-person Sunday services indoors, we are going to be singing. And yep, everybody's going to be wearing a mask other than those that are up on stage leading. So just so you know, some people might be uncomfortable with that. That's a personal preference, but that's what we're going to be doing right now. We will be singing, and I also said we put in new ventilation systems into the sanctuary space.
Jimmy did.
Yeah, Jimmy Winter's Heating and Air Conditioning did, and so we're very thankful to his whole crew. They did a great job. So we're bringing in 10 times the recommended amount of air per minute every minute. So we for those that we consider to be coming, we are well above and beyond what the recommendation is for bringing in fresh air. I'm really thankful for that. Thankful for the foresight of Tim and Jimmy to consider that and look into doing that for our space. So we've made that investment. We're really trying to make that as safe a space for you guys. So yes, please come, sing, wear a mask, and we'll be able to worship together.
Okay, thank you. I sorry that I missed that information.
Oh, that's okay.
Other question has to do with the leadership team. I'm really grateful that you all have put in so much work, many, many hours, I know, and have been stretched. But I don't know who the leadership team is, and it would be nice to know who to be grateful to.
Excellent. So who we regularly have meet, we have Tim, Lanny, and myself. We also have Jessica, who's our our communications director. She's been in there with us every step of the way. We have Keith Dobson.
These are the quadrant
we have our
leaders.
quadrant leaders. We have Keith Dobson. We have Rachel Jarbo. We have Daniel Mashter, Pastor Daniel. We also have Pete Romano and Brandon Nickish.
And Brandon Monday.
Brandon Monday as well, and Steve
And
Coy.
Dana.
And yes, and Miss Dana. And if I've forgotten anybody, please, those that are also on the leadership team, I mean, it's a great core of individuals. Yes, Steve Coy is on there as well. He's been preaching and teaching with us, and brings a lot of pastoral leadership experience to the mix. We've been blessed to have him with us too. So it's a very good leadership team. I'm really excited. You know, prior to COVID, we had really strengthened our leadership core in meeting twice a month. One of those meetings was already a Zoom meeting. Well before we all had to do Zoom, our leadership team had been meeting on Zoom for a good period of time, I think close to a year. So we could have like a kind of like a business meeting. We would have a full agenda, and we just rattle through everything for an hour. And those were really, really productive times. But we were also gathering in one of our homes on the alternating week to really just, sometimes it was business, sometimes it was business and vision, to talk together, to eat together, to really kind of have small group together as a core team. And that was a wonderful time. So we've been missing some of that ourselves as a leadership team. It's been very, very focused effort in almost every single one of our meetings. We're still meeting twice a month to talk through a lot of the changes that we're making. And we have other stand-up meetings that are off cycle for us because we're having to respond to so many changes. And so I'm very thankful to our team. They work very well together. And each person brings so much to the table. So.
But can you imagine going through this without having had those dinner meetings?
No, I'm so thankful that the Lord had us really laying into relationship at the leadership level early on, ahead of COVID, because we've really had to lean on each other in new ways. So yeah, Brandon Nickish has come in we have a new quadrant we're calling our fifth quadrant. As funny and odd as that is. But yeah, so we have a fifth quadrant now, which is our virtual life quadrant. So we've had, community life and spiritual life, all those different quadrants. And now we have virtual life, which is a new aspect of everything that we're doing right now during COVID, and then, on into when we reach our new steady state, because we're going to be integrating and speaking with people and all that online now for on into the future. It changes discipleship, it changes ministry for us in so many different ways. So having somebody that is overseeing that part of our connectivity in the church is huge for us. And Brandon's been doing a great job coming into that. He's got had a lot of interest in this for a long period of time. And so he brings a really great perspective, asks me great questions. Have we thought about this yet? Have we thought about this yet? Oh my goodness. No, we're not ready to do that yet, but we are ready to do these things. So I'm excited to have a new level of responsibility in that. And I think it's showing for us. So it's all balancing multiple points. I'm thankful to our leaders. So one last question, Nancy, I'm going to give it to you, and then we're going to be closing tonight because we're coming up on 8:30 already, and I want to be respectful of everybody's evenings. So go ahead, Nancy.
Number one, back about giving up your seat to a new person. Maybe you could add that to the registration, that if, someone would be willing to give their seat to a new person, you could put that in the registration so you know who to contact if that happens.
That's great.
And number two, who is the mysterious Our Father's House commenter on Facebook?
She just raised her hand.
Jessica.
Yeah.
You're very good. Thank you, Jessica.
She's worn many hats. One of them is mysterious Our Father's House commenter. All right. Well, that's it for this evening. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, for participating in this town hall. Really great questions, really great comments. Thank you for your feedback. You guys have so many good ideas, and we really appreciate you sharing them with us here tonight. I hope you hear that we are open to the ideas that you have, the concerns that you have. Your perspective is helpful to us as we're navigating all of this. And so really appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time to do this. And for whoever's watching this recorded, thank you for taking the time to watch through this with us too.
And I think the really neat role that you guys can help us with too is that now that you've heard Jay's heart and the heart of the leadership team, if someone hasn't watched this, you've heard it, so you can help, inform people.
Share what you know. So with that, we're going to close in prayer and set you about your evening. So Father, thank you so much for this time. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to gather comfortably in our homes right now, Lord, to hear one another's hearts, to hear each other's concerns, and to journey together through this time and on into what you have for us in the future together, Lord. We just thank you. We thank you for how you have provided for us in so many ways in the season, providing for things in the season ahead of time that we didn't know about. Lord, we just thank you for the intelligence and the heart and the witty insight that you've given your people during this time, Lord. Lord, we ask that you would continue to help us reach one another and reach our community and bless people and help them come to know you, Jesus, to the glory of our Father. We thank you, Holy Spirit, for your presence. We thank you for your wisdom, for your revelation. We are humbled before you as we move through this unprecedented time. We ask that your love for us and for one another would grow more and more day by day as we continue through this time. I ask for your blessings in Jesus' name on every household. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, guys. We love you.
Good.
Have a great night.
Good night.